Hello and welcome to Friday Double Bill, the show where we analyze and evaluate the latest films from Bollywood and Hollywood to help you make a more informed choice at the movies. I'm Fahad Samar and this is Mayank Shekhar.
Well, that brings us to the big Hollywood release. I know you're a Christopher Nolan fan. Of course, you want to know how we felt about Interstellar. Maybe you don't. Here's the movie.
Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, is set in the near future where planet Earth has been devastated by drought and famine. When humanity is facing extinction, a mysterious rip in the space-time continuum is discovered, giving mankind the opportunity to widen their lifespan. A group of explorers must travel beyond our solar system in search of a planet that can sustain life. The crew of the Endurance are required to go further than any human in history as they embark on an interstellar voyage into the unknown. However, through the wormhole, 1 hour is the equivalent of 7 years back on Earth. So the mission won't work if the people on Earth are dead by the time they pull it off. And the pilot of the Endurance, Coop, played by Matthew McConaughey, must decide between seeing his children again and the future of the human race.
Well, this is a show where we review films, Fahad. I don't think it'll be fair to call Interstellar a film. I think it's more an experience of another kind, from another world. Lots of times I felt, and the first time I saw 2001 A Space Odyssey, weirdly enough, was on a flight. It was on a screen as small as this. Yeah. And I was wondering, hey, what? And it blew my mind. So I was wondering what happened to people, whatever would have happened to people in 1969 when they would have watched a film like this on the big screen, and clearly you can tell right from the first shot of this movie that Christopher Nolan is trying to make a 2001 Space Odyssey of this generation, which even by Nolan standards, and he's made some really massive films, is a very ambitious venture, and you can tell right from the beginning till the end.
Oh, completely. I mean, given that he is one of the old school filmmakers and that he insisted on shooting on IMAX film as opposed to digital, the fact that he's done incredible things with the sound mixing, this is incredible. It's an experience. Suddenly you feel the seat vibrating violently when the aircraft is lifting off, the spacecraft. And I was wondering if somebody was kicking the seat from behind. But this is all amazing sound design. This is the 5th time, if I'm not mistaken, that he's collaborated with Hans Zimmer on the music score, and this time it's very different. And again, there's lots of silences, which is very effective in deep space. With all the juddering and all that going on. So it's a really top of the line filmmaking in that sense. But I can't help but think that Gravity did it better and very, very recently. And I think this is a huge tragedy for this film, that you have a film at the magnitude of Gravity that has just preceded it in very recent history.
Yeah, I agree with you, Fahad. I think this film inevitably will get compared to Gravity. And here's what I think. I think Gravity, although I like the film, had very little plot. This is a film that gives you the same experience but has way too much plot, to a point where you want to take in all this whole scientific mumbo jumbo-giri, and you hope that some person or the other who's a scientist will explain to you what this movie is about, or perhaps not, because you want to be part of this world rather than see it very logically.
Yes, and it's even more, upsetting because you have one of the great astrophysicists of the time, Kip Thorne, being a producer on this film. His theories are being things. So it's not easy. This is not an easy film. At the same time, because it's Nolan, he's got a lot of human drama and gravitas in the film. So you're wondering, this is, for me it was M. Night Shyamalan's Signs meets Gravity or 2001 A Space Odyssey. So it was a little disconcerting, and at 3 hours long, it really tests your patience.
Well, as I said in the earlier part of the show, Fahad, that this is more of an experience than a film. And for me, the OMG moments were far too many, starting with, of course, the setting itself. Now, they recreated a very dystopic Earth. This is the world that's going to go away purely because we're unable to eat the food that we produce. Yes, I completely agree with you. It seemed very M. Night Shyamalan to me. The other world is very Gravity, yes, because after all, we are in space. But I think the play of sound, because you move from Earth to space and space to Earth, as against gravity. I think that little movement was something that was almost like a weird experience for me at some point. There was a point, in fact, when it's so quiet in space, and you have this huge screen in front of you, and I could hear people breathing, and that's how beautiful the sound has been played. And I think those were really the OMG moments for me as far as Stellar is concerned.
Interstellar is not just an experience, it's an event. I mean, there are Nolan fans all over the world who've been waiting anxiously for the release. There are a lot of people here who've actually gone to Hyderabad only because they can see it at the biggest IMAX screen there is in the country. So that's how important this film is to a lot of fans. Having said that, Steven Spielberg was supposed to be directing this film way back in 2006, and it was Nolan's brother who actually wrote the screenplay. And I'm kind of stunned.
Who also wrote Inception.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, they've been collaborators on various The Prestige as well.
Right.
But what is disappointing to me is the kind of slightly shoddy scripting that takes place in situations like this. I mean, this Matthew McConaughey is out of work, retired pilot from NASA, who finds these coordinates, lands up there, and within 2 minutes he's taken off into space. So these kind of ridiculous plot devices, I thought, was a failing in otherwise what is obviously a very majestically mounted film. Having said all of that, this is just top of the line filmmaking, and that brings us to our verdict, doesn't it?
Well, I think when we talk about a film, we talk only about plot. When you talk about an experience, it's very important for viewers to know, and of course, all those who are Christopher Nolan fans who watch this film anyway, they don't need endorsement from us. But I have to make this very clear, because there are only 2 or 3 IMAX screens across India, and Dark Knight Rises, which I think is one of the finest Nolan movies, besides various others that he's made, I watched first time on a 2D screen, on a regular single screen as it turns out, and it was hardly a film compared to the one that I watched on the IMAX screen. So I think if you're not watching Interstellar on the IMAX screen, you're missing out on something. All those guys who went to Hyderabad, I think it's worth their ticket to space, as it turns out.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, it's not even a question of whether dekho ya pheko. It's a full-on dekho, but it's not just screen pe dekho or theater mein dekho and isi weekend pe dekho. But please do yourself a favor or IMAX pe dekho.
Okay guys, that was Friday Double Bill from our end. Hey, tell us what you think of the show. Write to us, mail us, give us your feedback.